we'll have to see.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. And I don't know if you'd want to send out Mana next. It's certainly not his best matchup. He's historically a PvT master and was incredibly good at that, even in Wings of Liberty. Still is pretty good at it. It does, of course, help that PvT is leaning towards the Protoss at the moment. But it's... I mean, you could send him out, and I think he'd be pretty confident against anybody, but his performance lately has not been so great, and the last time I cast Dystar was actually Wings of Liberty, so I've got to say I don't really have a frame of reference to assess his performance lately.
Yeah, I'm not too sure where he stands. Another big thing to take into consideration, I kind of mentioned, is the maps. I'm not entirely sure what the whole map pool is, but if there is one map that's really horrendously bad for ZVT or ZVP, then obviously you would want to just play for that, because I think it's worth using that to get Target out of the way. Because Target's just he's so unpredictable, you don't really want to risk something versus him. Again, that's just why I don't really like the option to put Nurgio out first. So if you could just use a really bad Zerg map to get him out of the way, and then play against Snoot, who may be the better player, but a bit more predictable. Like, Mana can come out with some kind of cheesy build, and he can probably play mind games with Snoot. Playing mind games with Target's pretty dangerous, because it's hard to know what he's going to do, and he could mess up your build by just going all in at any point.
Yeah.
So, kind of depends on the map pool as well. I don't know. This is part of the reason I wish we had more Nation Wars and even more team leagues. There's just a whole lot of mind games, and it adds more aspects to the whole competition beyond just the game itself.
I absolutely agree when it comes to the team league situation. And hopefully we will see some of the team leagues making a comeback in 2014. We're still waiting to hear whether or not there will be a new SC2L, whether or not there'll be a new Ace of Team Story Cup, and of course the GSTL is right now very much, I wouldn't even say up in the air, I'd say dead and buried and waiting for some kind of zombie-like resurrection. And that's not really going to happen with the current number of teams available in Korea unless the Casper teams suddenly decide after Pro League's over, hey, we'd love to play in GSTL, which would actually make it the best GSTL in history if they did that. But we will see. It seems unfortunately unlikely.
Yeah, it does. It's very strange because team leagues were always such a big thing in Brood War and Korea in general. I mean, we still see that with Pro League, but that's particularly in Korea because that's what allowed big sponsors to get behind it. It was easier to slap your name on a team and then just have the team succeed along with your name,
yeah,
than to try and deal with individual players or try and garner fame from like the individual leagues. Because it's kind of a bad bet to put all your money on one player in an individual league. Whereas if you put it on a team, you're going to get exposure.
Yeah, exactly.
One way or the other. So I don't know. I'm really surprised. I don't know why GSTL never caught on so much, but I mean, it definitely didn't. I've never watched it very religiously. It just never really had the appeal. I'm not sure why.
It was mainly an airtime problem, in my opinion. And it was even difficult for me to watch, and having a team in that, I wanted to try and keep my eyes on that. I recall the situation at the Red Bull LAN when I was watching Axiom Acer in the finals was 3 days without sleep to watch that. That was the only way. Even though I was going to try and sleep, I was too nervous anyway, so that wasn't going to happen. But to actually watch all of that, that was the only way to pull that off. So that, as you can see, kind of limits the viewership appeal. And then they put the VODs behind a paywall as well, so that made things even worse for people. But it's a shame, because GSTL lineups up until the last season were incredibly good.
They were. It was before Pro League really started to get running. It was definitely the pinnacle of team competition.
Yeah, certainly.
In like all of StarCraft 2. And like I said, team competitions were such a big thing. But Nation Wars as well. That's actually something I think is, if anything, even more neglected in StarCraft 2.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was such a big deal in Brood War. That was basically how you got started as a new player, because there were not a whole lot of sponsored teams. Esports obviously was much less developed, so getting into a sponsored team wasn't an easy way to get recognition or a whole lot of attention or get any money out of it. But the Nation Wars, there was a whole lot of pride attached to that. It was all run by WGT, and it was just like a constant ongoing thing. And I don't know, it just mattered a lot, and it was a really big thing to up and coming players to get onto their national team, represent their country and all that. There's a lot more national pride in general back in Brood War. Not sure why that didn't really transfer over.
I think it just became foreigner versus Korean very, very quickly. I don't
know. We had plenty of that too. I don't know. Brood War was the start of foreigner versus Korean. I'm not sure if we can claim that.
That is kind of true, although you have to bear in mind, I suppose, in Brood War that the instance of a foreigner beating a Korean in a best-of series was a lot rarer.
That's true. It's kind of harder to care about it when it's already a foregone conclusion.
Exactly. All right, well, it looks like they've picked Dystar, so we're going to see a Terran versus Zerg on Polar Knight here.
Yeah, on Polar Knight, so they did pretty much go with, I don't know, some Zergs are okay with this map. I can't imagine how. It's just so hard to take a third. It's such a short rush distance. If Terran gets set up at their third, they can just rally units at you, and they're at a high ground above one of your bases in like 3 seconds. So they did kind of just go with Dystar, have him put him on a really, really good map, and hope that he can take out Targa. But this is going to be tough for Targa. But on the other hand, Targa's the kind of player, he'll just do a 2-base Roach Bane all in if you give him a map where the third base is not particularly accessible. So this could backfire in that kind of circumstance.
It's definitely a possibility. So, to the north position, ladies and gentlemen, playing for Team Norway in the blue trunks, playing Zerg, it is Targa. Versus his opponent to the south position in the annoyingly similar purple trunks, playing for Team Poland. Also, of course, representing the Terran race, it is Millennium's Dystar.
So it's pretty easy to pigeonhole Targa as just like a very cheesy player because he does that a lot. But it's important to keep in mind that he can play a macro game as well. He's had tournament runs where, I forget what tournament it was, but he went through, he beat some Koreans, and then he ended up having like a really, really close series with MMA or something. And a lot of really big macro Mutiling Bane CVTs alongside all of his all-ins and stuff. So I would expect him to Roach Bane all-in or do something funky here. But you can't completely disregard his macro game. He's a pretty decent player in his own right when it comes to that. And Dystar is just really an unknown for me. Like, I know his name. He's been around for a long time. He's been competitive for a long time. But I can't remember the last time I actually saw him play.
He's been around for a ridiculously long time. The last time I cast him must have been Wings of Liberty, and the first time I cast him was Wings of Liberty Beta. It was that long ago. And he was actually very, very active in a lot of the European online cups and things like that. And he was getting very far as well. He was one of the stronger Terran players in Europe at the time. We're going to see a CC first here from Dystar on Polar Knight, the hatchery for Targa. No pull as of yet for him, so looks like we're going to see a very late pull from Targa. Both of these guys setting up for a slower start.
And he does end up going for, I believe that was a 16 pool. And this is one of the maps where you can actually just delay your pool by a little tiny bit, and your Overlord gets there to see the 14cc, and you can drop a third hatchery without having to drone scout. That does leave you a little bit exposed against certain rushes, so basically it's proxy 2 racks. Yep. But Targa not opting to do that and actually putting down a gas right away, so he will get speedling out. That makes it a little bit easier to go into a Roach Baneling all-in if he wants to. Gives him map control, scares the Terran a bit. So that is still leaving that opportunity open. But yeah, like you said, Dystar's been around for a long time, and back when he was getting a little bit more attention, he was like the definition of a textbook Terran player. There was nothing at all strange about him. Just completely by the book macro games. And players like that don't tend to change. Like, sometimes cheesy players will diversify. They'll still cheese every once in a while, but they will also learn macro games. It's pretty rare for a macro textbook player to then start cheesing much more. I'm not sure why, psychology of it and whatnot. Yeah. But it's pretty rare. So I would expect Dystar to play pretty by the book here. And, well, Targa, we'll see.
Yeah, can't even say it for Targa. You're definitely right, though, as to the way that those players tend to go. Heart's a really good example of that, actually. He cheesed a huge amount, and then he made that switch to macro, and it confused the hell out of people for about 3 tournaments, and he ended up getting high places as a direct result of that. And it seems like a lot of cheesy players like to go in that general direction, and they like to have that reputation as a cheeser because it means that the opponent ends up playing too safe, and then they go super greedy and just get rolled over. But no, I don't expect to see anything crazy out of Dystar, and we're not seeing anything crazy out of Dystar. It couldn't be more by the book at this point. He goes nice and safe. He starts to build his wall, bunker with 2 Marines in it, and then I expect to see Hellions coming out of Dystar momentarily.
Something fun's going to happen, though, because we have Speedling. Oh, and there goes the Baneling Nest. Targa never took drones off gas, so he's just going straight for a Ling Bane bust off of 1 gas. So this is going to be the really, really fast variation. We actually have a 3rd CC already from Dystar. So this is either going to be really, really good or really, really bad. He's either going to hold off the initial Baneling explosion and then just win easily because he's going to have 3 orbitals running, or the Banelings are going to connect, the Hellions are going to get surrounded, and then he's going to fall over and die because he has nothing else.
All of those are possible.
This is exciting.
Yeah, I like Targa. He means that these games end fairly early, and they end one way or the other. That's nice. There's not too much wasted time in the Targa game, by the looks of it. More Lings on the way. Already 20 on the field and 18 more to follow that one up. Huge amounts of Zerglings being brought in here. The Hellions are not actually going to spot any of that. They did jump onto one of those Zelnaga towers, but they didn't see anything because Targa went to the other side. And that Zelnaga was actually not even taken by Dystar. It was blocked by those 2 lings, so he hasn't seen a damn thing. And this is very, very clearly not prepared for a Baneling bust.
No, not at all. Dystar just now realizing, just now putting up extra bunkers, that is not going to play any part in this. It's all going to be down to the Hellion control. But 6 Hellions against that many Zerglings with Banelings in mineral lines. Although he is going to be able to wall off and sit behind that. All of the SCVs that's natural, absolutely dead.
Yes.
It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to be able to hold on his main. And 3 Banelings actually completely wasted there for Targa. That was questionable.
Quite surprising that he did that, considering he knew that 3 Banelings would not kill a supply depot, but he went into that anyway. He has completely ransacked the natural, so that's nice. The bunker is actually going to get salvaged immediately. And he's made things a little bit difficult, certainly for Dystar, but the thing is that even if you kill all of those, you still have triple mule, so if you don't actually kill your opponent here, you can still end up being behind, even though he's killed 12 workers.
Yeah, short of this next bust actually killing Dystar, Dystar basically wins, because they're actually on equal harvesters right now, but Dystar has 3 orbital mules running. Dystar, however, only has those Hellions, and Target is going to go for one last attack here with 5-6 Banelings.
Oh man, Dystar supply blocked.
Oh, that's not so good. He has the 6 Hellions. He can hold. The Banelings are not exploding for whatever reason.
Okay.
Terrible. That was god-awful by Targa. I don't know what he was doing there, but one or the other, Dystar has secured himself. Still equal harvesters against the 3 orbitals. Targa is putting up his 3rd hatchery. He has started drone production. He has pretty decent creep spread going. He did get those additional queens. He wasn't, like, completely all in, but it's an uphill road now. Those 3 orbitals just cannot be underestimated.
No. Stim's done now as well, and Dystar is actually back into full-on production mode, and Target takes that 3rd base, is well behind tech-wise. He's now only just starting his lair, and Stim is already finished. There's 4 more barracks going up behind this for Dystar, so he's had quite enough of this nonsense, and also has 8 Hellions, which is, in fact, now 10 Hellions. Huge amounts of them, knowing that all his opponent's got is Ling Baneling, so Hellions are absolutely fine in this position. It's not even a Roach Warren up here by the looks of it for Targa. He's going straight for Lair, so these Hellions are going to gain full map control, one would think, and might even be able to do some damage, but Targa's wall-off is looking pretty solid, so I can't imagine that's going to happen. Another Ling run-by comes in here. These Lings are all going to die, but they might be able to get a few mules.
Yeah, nice catch by Dystar. He didn't really have any more units back at home, so if he hadn't had those Hellions back, playing a little bit defensively, that circling attack could have actually done
everything
quite a
there,
bit.
actually. Really, really good.
Yeah, really nice by him. And with that, it means that there's like 10, 12 Zerglings on the field against the 10-some Hellions of Dystar. So it's going to be really, really hard for Targa to take any control of his 3rd base. He's going to have to be producing Zerglings, and that means he's not going to be producing drones, and he really needs to play catch-up on economy. Like, if we look at the harvester count, he is up 10 harvesters, but that does not tell the real story with those
full mules
in play.
Yeah, absolutely not. So, in reality, the income looks more like that. It's actually extremely even, with Dystar actually having the slight edge now as a result of these mules. So, he is absolutely fine. He's not too worried at all. He's even moving out his 3rd CC because he has full map control right now. So, he feels that he's safe in doing so. And he's right. He absolutely can do that. The Spire is on the way here, but Dystar's still got another couple of minutes of being able to do really whatever he wants. And then he's going to actually have to deal with those Mutalisks. But the Marine production is going to be in full swing quite shortly. He's just finished the reactors on all of those barracks, so he's going to be building 8 Marines. In fact, yeah, 9 Marines perhaps at a time. It depends if he wants to throw some Marauders in there. He is going to bring up a couple of Widow Mines into this as well, so it looks like he's set up absolutely fine for Targa's next move.
Yeah, it certainly should be. He really he's in such great shape. He has double upgrades. They're exactly on par with Targa's. He'll have 1-1 before any big engagements happens. He already has 5 barracks along with 4 reactors in production. He's got that 3rd CC basically running before Targa's 3rd base is running. Targa couldn't have any drones at his 3rd base for so long because those Hellions give Dystar such good map control. It's going to be tough. Targa has a lot of Zerglings. That's one thing to be noted. He could go for a really big muted Link Bane attack as soon as the mutas pop, try and bust that 3rd base. But Targa's Baneling speed is actually quite delayed. So that's gonna make it very, very difficult if he wants to go for something like that. Target does have very good creep spread. That's one real thing he has going for him. But just his production, his economy, his upgrades, his tech, everything is pretty significantly far behind that early baneling attack. That kind of build is just so like you have to make so much happen. It's really hard to make happen.
And it certainly didn't. The Target did not do a great job with that. I mean, the last Baneling bust in particular was just kind of silly. You got all his Banelings trapped behind 2 of his own Zerglings, which is a little embarrassing and didn't really do the job. It gave Dystar all the time in the world to actually prepare to defend that, and by the time the Hellions were lined up, there was no way in a million years it was going to attack. But now Dystar bringing it to Targa and is able to take out a couple of Banelings. Decent detonation comes off there. The Mutalisks come in from the side right here. The Marine count is not massive yet, especially with more Banelings on the way, but it is forcing, before the Baneling speed is done, a defense from Targa, which did not work out well. Dystar continues to push in right here. This third mineral line is looking like it's going to get gutted very, very quickly indeed. Queen's taking damage as well. Even the macro hatches out here and exposed, so this is certainly not good. More Lings are spawning and trying to surround Dystar, but he continues to fire. He does still have a couple of Hellions left in there, and eventually it looks like Target's going to clean this up, but he did lose his third base. He does have kind of his weird backup third base sitting there that can actually be used to mine at a slightly longer distance, but that was a bit unfortunate that Target was not able to... Oh, no! That was most of the Banelings going off from a Widow Mine hit there. Target must be hating life at this point, and so much for that counter-aggression.
Yeah, the small saving grace is a Zergling counterattack at the same time actually cleared out all of the SCVs and forced a lift off of the third base, but Dystar, he's just in full production mode, he's rolling on through here. And Target just doesn't have enough stuff. He's actually down in supply, which is of course never where you want to be as a Zerg. And kind of sloppy engagements by Dystar, but it's really not going to matter at this point. He has so much stuff, he can just kind of steamroll through. And Targa being pretty sloppy in his own right. He was complaining about lag before, so you have to kind of wonder if that's the case, but he's just been sending his units in piecemeal, a handful of units at a time, and he does manage to clear this up.
Yeah, I think really, really poor Widowmine detonations do help him out a lot there, and Targa the splits from Dystar not so great either, so that was good. He was able to at least shove the Terran player back from his third base there and clean up a few of those Widow Mines as well. But Dystar's going to continue to pile on this pressure. 3 base production here. Maybe he could... in fact, I was going to say, maybe he should get some more barracks, and he builds 5 more. So I guess he is thinking the same, that he could really start rally 2-2 Marines in a big way. Dystar continues to try and apply the aggression to the economy of Targa here. More Mutalisks coming in. Some pretty poor Widow Mine connections, but some also pretty poor Baneling connections. Eventually pushes this back, but fairly costly for Targa, who is really far down in army supply here.
Yeah, as always, the problem is here, he's trading his Mutas and his Banelings for the Marines. He's not taking out the Medevacs or the Widow Mines, which means this is just eventually going to go in Dystar's favor as long as he can hold it off. And he's pushing through here pretty quickly to do that early game advantage. And 2-2 is about to finish. Right now, a bit of an upgrade advantage for Target. He got his 2-2 slightly faster. 2-2 is about to finish for Dystar as well. And if nothing else, I think that should spell the end of it.
I certainly think so. This Marine force will be cleaned up with the Broodlings assisting, so there was enough links to actually make that happen. And again, the Widow Mines are not getting the best connections outside of that one hit with the Banelings there, but with 5 additional barracks in production here, I think things are going to go the way of the Terran at this point. Targa's not able to apply any aggression to his opponent. He's playing purely defensively, and he might be getting the better end of some of these trades, but it doesn't matter because Dystar just has more stuff. And now the army supply is 74 to 34.
There's a complete Widow Mine field set up there. Every time an engagement happens, the Widow Mines and the Medevacs survive. Even if the Marines are dying, you can replace those very, very easily, especially now that he's running off of like 9 barracks. And the third hatchery will fall, and that should be the end of it. Target's holding on because, I don't know, he doesn't like losing or something, but there's not anything he can actually do here.
Very strange player, the guy that doesn't like losing, I tend to find.
I know, it's so weird.
I don't really understand that. You know, I personally absolutely love it. It's a really, really good thing to do.
Dystar actually moving back to check the corner base. That, of course, is not there. Target is continuing to try and expand around the map. I'm not sure what he really sees happening here. He has about 6 Mutas against a big, massive 2-2 Marines with Widow Mines. So
well, you've got to give Targa some props for his gumption at any rate, but this is... Oh! Actually, never mind. That was a Baneling hit and a half right there. So he is actually able to push a lot of that back, and the Widow Mines connect mostly with the Marines more than anything else, but there's actually no military units left for the Zerg now. And it doesn't matter how many Marines you kill, there's way more coming your way, and there's the GG. Dystar powering forward with 10 barracks production on 3 bases, going up to 3-3, and Targa's failed Baneling bust puts him behind for the rest of the game, and that, as they say, is that.
Yeah, that's been the story of TVZ throughout HOTS. It's hard enough when you're on equal footing, but if you're behind, just because he was constantly trading gas units for the Marines, he was never taking out the Widow Mines or the Medevacs. And if you can't take those out, you're going to lose long term no matter how well you take out the Marines, just because you can keep making Marines, you can't keep making Banelings at that rate. Nicely played by Dystar, but it really just, I don't know. I don't know why anyone still does those Ling Bane attacks. They work sometimes, but it's just so much on your opponent messing up, more so than you being able to actually do anything. And, well, credit to the Dystar for not messing up at least.
Yeah, he played rock solid. And you were talking earlier about him being a textbook Terran. That's exactly what he is, and funnily enough, that's exactly what he needed to be in order to deal with Targa there. If he got super greedy, then Targa would have been able to win, certainly. He was a little greedy with that third CC, but he wasn't massively so. He did at least prepare for the possibility that Targa would go after him, which ended up happening. And then Targa flubbed the attack up the ramp, and that resulted in some fairly dodgy Baneling connections and a lot of waste. Threw away those 3 Banelings before into the supply depot for no reason, and it could have been a better, more focused all-in, I think, that would have actually worked out. But after it failed, well, we saw it just went the way of the Terran and never stopped.
Certainly. In a way, making that early third CC is almost the best thing you can do against that, because unit-wise, anything you can get out in time is barely going to help. An extra couple of Marines, maybe 1 Marauder. It's really what you need to defend that is buildings and Hellions, and having the third orbital just means that you don't need to defend quite as well because you have 3 meals to fall back on. So really, it seems like it's kind of greedy. It seems like you shouldn't be putting down a third command center in response to an all-in, but it's actually one of the better things you can do.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. We're going to take a short break, and no doubt a lot of you would like to go visit the bathroom or whatever, so we invite you to do just that, although I'd recommend you do it separately. We'll be coming back with Dystar versus one of the 2 remaining Norwegian players, either Snooter or Aiki, and we're interested to see who that will be. We'll find out right after this break. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nation War, and it's going to be Dystar versus Ike. Very much the battle of the unknowns here for many people.
Probably the third player from both teams. Dystar looked pretty good in that last one, and Snoot. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to call him Snoota. I didn't even realize there was any discussion over his name. Snoota seemed pretty fond of Ike in the pre-match interview. But yeah, the battle of the underdogs here. I would say either of these would be surprising if they beat, the Snoot or the Nurchio of the other lineup.
I'd certainly tend to agree with that, but both of them could surprise. We will find out as we go in here on Frost LE. Ladies and gentlemen, in the red trunks to the southwest position representing Team Poland, who evens up the series 1 apiece in this best-of-5 nation war. It is Dystar from Team Millennium versus his opponent to the southeast position, relatively unknown, I believe, playing for Carnage at this point, and also, of course, representing Team Norway. In the blue trunks playing Protoss, it is Ike.
Dystar certainly looked very, very good in that last game, and to be fair to him, he plays a very generic character, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's very hard to be successful as a generic player unless you're extremely good, because everyone knows what you're going to do. And when you start to get any kind of recognition in WCS or any kind of high-profile things, everyone just knows exactly how you're going to play, and they know exactly how to deal with it, and it's really hard to come back from that kind of disadvantage unless you're absurdly good. So Dystar can be very, very good, and just given his style, not have a whole lot of success. And then here in this environment, maybe he's playing against people who don't know him as well. Maybe he hasn't been studied as much because he hasn't been too successful recently. So Dystar certainly could be the better player here.